Hi, King. We're live.
Very good. Okay, thank you, Deuce. So I'm going to call to order this biannual meeting of the city's advisory committee here on March 30th, 2022 at 11:02. I want to thank everyone for taking time this morning for your again biannual check-in with San Diego LAFCO. I'm going to have Erica go ahead and do roll call, and then I'm going to come back to just some opening comments. And Erica, go ahead and do roll call by city. And if there's more than one member from that city, if both or more can identify themselves, that would be wonderful by name and title. Go ahead, Erica.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. So the roll call for today, Carlsbad.
Here, Paz Gomez, Deputy City Manager for Public Works.
Chula Vista.
Here, Tiffany Allen, Director of Development Services.
Here, Laura Black, Assistant Director of Development Services.
Coronado. Absent. Del Mar. Sorry, absent. El Cajon.
Good morning, Vince DiMaggio, Assistant City Manager.
Encinitas.
Present, Jennifer Campbell, Assistant City Manager.
Escondido is absent. Imperial Beach is absent. La Mesa, absent. Lemon Grove.
Lydia Romero here, City Manager of Lemon Grove.
Thank you. National City.
Here, Robert Diano, Director of Public Works, City Engineer.
Oceanside. Absent. Poway.
Good morning, Chris Hazeltine is here.
San Diego is absent. San Marcos.
Jack Griffin, City Manager.
Santee.
Tim McDermott, Director of Finance, taking the meeting for Marlene Best.
And Solana Beach is absent. And Vista.
Hello, Patrick Johnson, City Manager.
Okay, there is a virtual quorum with 10 cities represented. So ends roll call.
Outstanding. So again, for those veterans on this committee, Keen Simons, the executive officer, and again, for those veterans, you know, when we say we're going to end at 11:45, you have my guarantee that that will happen. Also, just because I think it's a bit of missing the headline, Vince DiMaggio is a former LAFCO commissioner, and I just want to make sure that everyone understands that, you know, you too can reach that goal if there's some interest. So you may want to talk to me out offline, but nevertheless, Vince was a commissioner for the beautiful county of Monterey back in the day. So I'm quickly going to just introduce staff and our consultant who you'll hear from in a bit. But joining us today are two analysts, Carol and Priscilla. You all know Du, our GIS and now Zoom professor. Erica is our clerk for today's meeting. And then we have Adam Wilson, who's been doing some good consultant work for us. Some of you will recall back in the day, Adam was with the county and with Supervisor Jacob's office. And we're going to hear from Adam in just a bit. But again, this is our check-in for really the upcoming fiscal year. We're going to talk about our budget and our work plan. And then Adam's going to give you an update along with your representative, Lydia Romero, on the ad hoc committee that we formed a year or so ago to help with a rather complex LAFCO proposal that does affect directly or at least indirectly all of you on this call. So with that said, I'm going to stop here. And Erica, do we have any members of the public who either registered to speak or have any emails in the inbox?
I don't have any pre-registered comments, and so far I don't have any live email comments.
Very good. And so because we are doing this by way of live televideo, if for anyone who's watching us in real time, Erica, if you remind us at the very end to do another check-in on public comments, just to double check. So with that being said, we can go on to our business items. The first item, committee, is the meetings from our last get-together in September. Keep in mind, so long as your representative was either there, or I assume you watched the video. If you weren't, we can take motions in seconds from anyone on today's call. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved, El Cajon.
Thank you, El Cajon. A second?
Second, National City.
Second from National City. Thank you very much. Any questions on the minutes? Seeing none. Erica, because we are doing this by video conference, can you do a roll call by members that are in attendance?
Carlsbad,
Aye.
Chula Vista,
Aye.
El Cajon,
Aye.
Encinitas,
Aye.
Lemon Grove,
Aye.
National City,
Aye.
Poway,
Aye.
San Marcos,
Aye.
Santee,
I would abstain as I was not part of that meeting.
Vista.
Yes.
So there are 9 in favor, 1 abstain. The motion passes.
Wonderful, very good. So now we are going to move on to 4B, which is a twofer. This is the opportunity for LAFCO staff to present both our proposed work plan for the upcoming fiscal year, but also then the means upon which we will fund those activities through our budget process. Keep in mind, and I'll go into a little more detail on this, all the cities, and thank you, contribute to the LAFCO budget by way of a portion of your tax revenues collected in a given fiscal year. That fiscal year is typically whatever has been posted by the state controller's office. So there's usually about a 2 to 3 year lag, depending on when they publish, their city's annual report. But I'll come back to that in a bit. But with respect to both of these connected items, we certainly at LAFCO are in a status quo mode in that we're really just trying to continue on with the scope and scale of our work in our budget and making some targeted adjustments as see fit. And so the item that is in your agenda packet, or items, was tentatively approved by our commission 2 weeks ago at a noticed hearing. We are now out for a 45-day public comment period on both. So as you take in these items today, certainly as a committee, you can express a thought or compliment, but then certainly at your home agency, you will have some additional time to consider providing the commission any thoughts or comments before we assume we go back to the commission with final versions on our May 2nd meeting. So that said, let's talk about the work plan. So we're continuing to identify 30 projects on our to-do list. All of those items that we anticipate doing in 22-23 are provided on page 17 of the agenda packet. And it's again prioritized in a few categories. Our top 10, those are the items that we are putting all of our resources, so to speak, in getting addressed. And then once we get past the top 10, we're really doing a telegraphing process. We're identifying the other things that are making their way up to our priority. If we can get to them in fiscal year 23, great. But if not, there's a very good, if not certain, possibility that they'll get rolled into the next fiscal year work plan, albeit presumably at a higher placement ranking. So in looking at our top 10, our to-do priorities, certainly a number of them are continued from this fiscal year. And I know that those residents, or excuse me, those city managers along the State Route 78 will have seen this before. We continue to make progress, but we still aren't at the point of being ready with any published documents for our municipal service reviews for the great cities of Vista, San Marcos, and Oceanside and Carlsbad. All of those, whether they're in our top 10 or certainly in our top 15, are scheduled again for fiscal year 23. I think all of them have been assigned project managers that are with us today. We also, just for the benefit of highlighting some things of interest to the cities, there are a couple that fall right outside our top 10, but nevertheless merit some attention. We had scheduled for this fiscal year a update on our policies with respect to city island annexations. We somewhat hit pause on that because at the same time we got a island annexation proposal from Mr. Johnson in the city of Vista, and we didn't think it would be fair for him or his city for us to do a parallel policy update while we're processing his proposal. By the way, Mr. Johnson, we should be able to get that proposal on our commission docket either, well, probably within the next 2 months, but that's a separate comment. But the relevance for the rest of the cities here, in LAFCO law, there are expedited proceedings for us to proceed with annexations of areas that are either entirely surrounded, which makes it easy to say, yes, that's an island, or perhaps a little more gray, there are areas that are substantially surrounded by a city. And if LAFCO agrees, in particular with respect to a substantially surrounded island, well, then not only do we fast track an approval, most notably, we waive protest proceedings, which means that it's somewhat ministerial once your council has taken action. Yes, there are some findings that need to be made, but nevertheless, it's a way to all but ensure, an orderly annexation of that area. This LAFCO does not define substantially surrounded, and there may be good reasons for it. Certainly, I could think of some reasons. But what we want to do is have an exercise in which we go out and identify a couple of thresholds, one being, let's say, 66.6% surrounded by a city boundary, and show on a map what that means for the 18 cities in San Diego County relative to the other requirements that expedited island annexation proceedings trigger, i.e. it has to be a certain size or less, can't be any prime agricultural land, which for LAFCO purposes means essentially it can't be an active ag business generating more than $400 gross per acre. That's essentially our definition of prime ag in LAFCO land. But most, not all, but most of you are going to be affected by that island annexation policy discussion. Maybe not at the 66.6% threshold we'll look at, but perhaps if we use a lower threshold, 50.1%, I'm sure others will be affected. And it also goes, and I know this is an ongoing discussion with our friends in Escondido, and I don't see Sean on the call, but we're trying at LAFCO to encourage all of you to annex these unincorporated pockets or areas. And Escondido is perhaps the first, but probably not alone in saying, hey, we've got our concerns about roads or drainage or other things that we don't necessarily want to be pushed and or encouraged to take up. So this leads us to another discussion. One of the things that we have on our work plan is kind of an open discussion about the property tax exchange. Many of you, at least your predecessors, signed off on a master property tax exchange with the county back in the 90s. And it has a revolving number of percentages. And I wasn't there, certainly, and probably most of you weren't there, but there is a number assigned to each city in San Diego County where the county says, if you annex unincorporated land, you'll get X percent of our 1%. Well, one of the things that we may want to help facilitate is a review of that master tax agreement. And in the case of Escondido, see if it truly helps make up for any cost impacts that you may have in annexing otherwise developed or somewhat developed areas. And I think that is number 25 on our to-do list. So maybe not next year, but certainly the following year, you could have that on your own radar of things we want to pick up on. And that last but not least, another project that is of relevance, albeit indirectly to many of you, we are going to be presumably starting a governance study where we're going to look at a relationship between Escondido and Rincon del Diablo MWD at the request of Escondido in terms of, does it make sense to bring those two agencies together? I know that there are a number of other cities that have special districts and special district relationships, water, wastewater mostly, where it may also make sense for some type of holistic consolidation to occur. I would encourage all of you to pay attention to what we do with Escondido and Rincon, because I think it will play itself out in how we view relationships between the other cities and your special districts going forward. So that's the work plan. Again, 30 projects. Now, thinking about how we're going to fund those activities. Right now, the LAFCO budget is pretty lean. We're at $1.94 million. What we are proposing is a modest, perhaps moderate increase by about 4.1% to bring us some additional funding to just absorb the cost of living going into fiscal year 23. That includes a placeholder for cost of living adjustment for our 8 budgeted positions, not an increase in the number of budgeted positions, but simply a placeholder cost of living adjustment. You will see that the actual increase in the bottom line number, the way we get to 4.1% of an increase, is being driven actually by services and supplies. The commission did a voluntary incentive retirement program this year, and that actually generated a couple of retirements, which for an office of 8 is actually a big number. So a little more than 20% of our workforce retired last year. And so we're able to use those savings by curbing what otherwise would have been a bigger jump in our funding needs. Very quickly, just as a primer, so we are all LAFCO employees, albeit the commission chooses to contract with the county for all of our benefits. So whatever the county does in terms of benefit changes or with the Retirement Association gets passed on through LAFCO. We do not use county council, though. A few years ago, we made a change. And so our biggest line item under services supplies is professional services. That includes our counsel, Holly Watley, who's with a law firm in Pasadena. But again, for the most part, I would call this a status quo budget. And while you take a look, if you would like to see the details on page 20 of where our revenues come from, keep in mind we are relatively blessed. All LAFCOs are blessed, where all we need to do is set the budget, And then we apportion out our costs among the county, the cities, less City of San Diego, the independent special districts, and then separately the City of San Diego, because they are guaranteed a seat on our commission. So there's a pay to play formula that goes on. But for budgeting purposes, keep this comment in mind. Because we are slowly winding down the amount of reserves we've been using as non-operating revenues, while our overall costs are going up 4.1%, your cost, the agency apportionments are going up 6.1%. So while this is not a perfect projection, it would be reasonable to assume whatever we billed you last year, at most would probably go up maybe 8%. Some are going to go down probably quite a bit. And the reason why I say this is the funding numbers are going to be a bit skewed. And we're working with the auditor's office right now because one of the things that gets treated as a revenue are subsidies, grants. And I'm not sure how COVID-19 and the funding that came out of that is going to impact how the auditor treats your revenue totals. So we're going to work on trying to drill that comment down. But from LAFCO's perspective, our apportionments are only going up 4.1%, or 6.3%. However, because of the way the law treats the apportionments, there may be some movement depending on who got more funding versus who got less funding. So we'll do our best to try to give you a heads up as soon as possible what those numbers look like. So nevertheless, that is our work plan going into next year, and that is our budget going into next year. This is for you to be aware. If you have any initial comments or questions, love to take them. And again, you all as individual agencies have, I believe, until the end of, or I think the final week of April to offer up a formal comment that the commission would then take up as they consider a final action. So using your raised hand feature on Zoom, I'll stop here to see if there's any questions or comments. I see Vince, a question. Go ahead, sir.
Couple of things. I think El Cajon would be interested in participating in the tax sharing look at things. In my experience, as you point out, I have experience in other counties, and I think the situation in this county is somewhat unusual based upon my experience. And so I think that there's some value in kind of examining that. And so we would look favorably upon that. My question for you is, I didn't see El Cajon's plan on the work plan, which is fine. We have no, we have no interest in annexing any areas, but I'm sure you know, Keene, the Bostonia area, which is north of the 8, is substantially surrounded by El Cajon city limits. Bostonia itself is unincorporated. In that situation there, if you're familiar with it, would you be looking at us to consider annexing that? Is that what you were referring to? And I'm talking specifically about that area of our city.
Yeah, so I'm pulling up a map, and so this may be a general comment, and maybe I'm hitting on the Bostonia area because I'm not as familiar with that as perhaps I could or should be. But if the city, here's my comment, if this only way or the principal way an unincorporated area right outside of a city is accessed is through city streets. Mm-hmm. And the city is notionally already the first responder in terms of police, and certainly if it's providing a utility service. Our comment at LAFCO is yes, not only should you be thinking about annexing those areas, but as part of any proactive planning, pre-zoning it, and going down that path. So yes, and just so you know, I'm looking at our study schedule. So we have LAFCO looking at the El Cajon area. And for everyone on our municipal service review page, we have our actual 5-year study schedule. And we are going to be visiting the world of El Cajon in fiscal year 25, along with Santee. So thank you, Vincent. I appreciate your comments about wanting to participate and pay attention to the property tax exchange. As you could, all of you could appreciate, LAFCO staff tries to be proactive without looking provocative, and sometimes to the county, that's a blurred line. And if we have cities who are saying, yeah, no, this is a legitimate interest, it helps neutralize the provocativeness that the county may feel we are up to. So thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments on either the work plan or the budget from the committee members?
Yes.
Yes, Paz, please go ahead.
So just wanted to better understand, we are still, I think, scheduled for, and now rescheduled for next fiscal year, but just wanted to better understand where we're going to be taking off from, because as you may recall, we had our LAFCO presentation. I want to say it was in late 2019, and then things were put on hold. So is there a new representative that's been assigned to us, and what will be the way forward?
Yes. So I believe, and Carol, help me if I'm wrong, you have been assigned that. So Paz, Linda Heckenkamp was the person, I believe, who came out, probably did a great job presenting. But of course, she had the decision to start a family. And so now she's off enjoying that part of her life. And we've switched most of her project assignments to Carol. And I'll defer to Carol to maybe follow up with you offline in re-engaging that process. And as part of that, I think we're somewhat trying to make sure that all of the agencies that are in a region that we've identified, what we try to do is sync it up so we're all looking at the same 5-year window of data, and that typically involves the audit process. So yes, you are on our study schedule for this year again, and I'll have Carol follow up with you offline on some specifics. So thank you, Paz.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, seeing no other virtual hands, I think we are good to go. And again, thank you so much, committee members. You still have till the end of this month to provide written comments on either the work plan or the budget as you see fit. So now the next item follows. In September of last year, Adam came before you, Adam Wilson, our consultant, said, hey, we're starting to really get into some of the details on this ad hoc committee that involves this rather seemingly simple, but not simple, reorganization request where 2 North County districts want to pull out of the Water Authority. A lot has transpired since Adam reported to you in September of 2021. What I would like Adam to do is just walk you through the key achievements of the ad hoc. I know Lydia Romero is your representative also on that committee. She can speak to the process as well. And then we could pivot a bit and Adam can highlight what we think is next in some timelines. So with that, Adam, the floor is yours, sir.
Keen, thank you. Much appreciated. Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning. Adam Wilson here, San Diego consultant for LAFCO. I just want to take a quick second or two to kind of maybe back up from the beginning, just to provide you guys with maybe kind of a quick refresher course to refresh your memories. But in June 2020, our ad hoc committee was created to assist LAFCO in the administrative review for the Rainbow Fallbrook applications, as Keen noted, for detachment from the County Water Authority. I was brought on as moderator to this committee, and to date, the committee has met nearly a dozen times. During the onset, the committee decided that hiring an independent water expert would assist in the merits and demerits of the proposals. Water economist from UC Berkeley, Dr. Michael Hanneman, was hired. He was tasked to study 3 interconnected topics related to water reliability, financial impacts, and any potential exit or departure fee. His draft report was issued in September 2021, and his final report was submitted January of this year. About a month ago, he presented his final report to our ad hoc committee, and each committee member was individually asked to go on record and conclude if Dr. Hanneman fulfilled his duties and responsibilities by completing a report that fully addressed those 3 topics that I just mentioned, and if that report would assist LAFCO in making informed decisions throughout the process. The committee unanimously conceded yes that he did, and I just want to remind everybody that they conceded yes that he completed his work, his duties, his responsibility to those 3 topics. Now, the information within that report, there is some agreement and some dissent, but nonetheless, they all have concluded that that report for LAFCO provides that added value to that process. Real quickly, I want to kind of, from a very high level standpoint, I want to kind of highlight some of his findings related to those 3 topics. With respect to topic 1, water reliability, he concluded that both Eastern and San Diego County Water Authority have reliable wholesale supplies of water. However, he noted that the County Water Authority is more reliable given that they are more diverse via both local supplies, and that's predominantly through the Carlsbad desalination plant and their higher priority to the Colorado River water known as QSA. With respect to topic 2, the financial impacts, Dr. Hanneman concluded that both Rainbow and Fallbrook would have a combined net annual savings of $7.7 million should detachment occur between these wholesalers. And he also concluded that the County Water Authority would have an annual net loss in revenue of $12.6 million should that same detachment happen. And lastly, related to topic 3, the exit fee, he concluded that an exit or departure fee is fair and reasonable and economically justifiable to condition. He concluded that that fee would be appropriately to be based on the proportional shares of the Water Authority's existing cost obligations for acquiring grandfathered rights to that QSA water. And based on these premises, he concluded that a combined annual exit fee for both districts be $13 million as a reasonable floor to be considered. He concludes that this fee is reasonable to be paid by both Rainbow and Fallbrook in no less than 3 years, but no more than 10 years. So again, that's a very, very high level look at a very detailed 114-page report. I would encourage all of you to at least bare minimum go on to the LAFCO's website and read the executive summary. If not, if you want to spend your afternoon reading the whole thing. But a lot of good details and analysis that he has provided to this issue. So with respect to our next steps, as we reached that conclusion to his final report, we had most of this, we had some subject agencies and some other committee members suggest that our ad hoc committee look into additional issues beyond this report. So what we requested that they do is submit those additional topics or issues in writing, in which they did over the last few years. And LAFCO staff and I reviewed those over the last couple of weeks, and we concluded that there is some merit for the ad hoc to continue meeting, but we are going to suggest and recommend to them that the ad hoc assist LAFCO in drilling down on the specific cost impacts to both the city of San Diego and a smaller end water supply user such as UMI or maybe a substitute district. And I'm highlighting this as it's important because it's part of one of the other larger takeaways from Hanneman's report. Even though he wasn't tasked to study this specifically, and he was just focused and concentrated on those 3 topics, he did have a larger takeaway that kind of spoke to the regional impacts and the comparison of what he described as what's called detachment versus roll-off. And specifically, the city of San Diego went on record with respect to their potential, or not potential, their actual future roll off with pure water, as they will in the future, as that program comes online, be using a significantly less amount of water from the water authority. And so they've gone on record to kind of start asking those questions of what does it mean to those impacts to the city? What does it mean to the impacts to the ratepayers? What does it mean to the impacts of the region? And in my update to LAFCO's commission in this month, we also had some comments from the commissioners on this point as well, of from a global holistic point of view, what is these applications going to mean in that regards from a regional level? And so it's important that it's important that I'm here today highlighting this to you, because I suspect most, if not all of you, are member agencies of the Water Authority. And so you might be asking yourself some of those same questions. So our ad hoc committee is going to be meeting April 7th. If you're inclined to participate, I would encourage you to do so, at least tune in and listen. But that ad hoc committee is we're hopeful will at least be setting the table to those conversations and questions on that additional issue as it pertains to roll off versus detachment, and what those regional impacts are. So with that, our remaining timeline is we'll concurrently be processing Rainbow and Fallbrook's applications. We suspect that our internal review and analysis through LAFCO staff will conclude some sort of time in the month of September, in that time frame. And then we are hopeful, and all things considered, with this variable process and everything, no pun intended, being fluid, we anticipate some sort of formal proposal to the LAFCO Commission by the end of this year. So that's kind of my 5-minute report. I'm more than happy to take any questions or comments, and appreciate it, Keen.
And let's check in with Lydia, who's been a trooper on behalf of all of you in sitting in on these multiple meetings. Lydia, what say you on where you think the ad hoc has been and going?
So a couple of things. Adam gave you a very good overview of what we've been dealing with. If you have it, and if you had time, or you're interested, or your public works folks or your water folks, if you have them, please read Dr. Henneman's report. I think it's a very telling and a very good report. And I think one we are going to probably have to talk about as a region, because of the infrastructure that we've invested in and what that means for roll off, if there's additional detachments. Because I can tell you, in East County, there might be some additional roll offs that happen with some of their smaller pure water projects. So, but Adam did a great job. Secondly, Adam, our ad hoc meeting to really focus in on the two items that you just mentioned from the city of San Diego and then the smaller district is actually April 11th. We had originally thought it was going to be the 7th, and then you changed it to the 11th at 2.
Sorry, we've been going back and forth on so many dates, had a little brain fart there, but yeah, April 11th at 2 p.m., which is Monday, I think, on Monday.
Yes. And quite frankly, I think Adam would be better positioned to ask any very specific questions on this item. If any of you have any comments or questions as the agenda comes out, please contact me directly, and I can help convey those messages in the ad hoc group as this representative.
Thank you, Lydia. I see Paz has her hand up. Go ahead, Paz.
I was just wondering how to get a meeting invite to that meeting on the 11th.
Adam.
Yeah, we can certainly get you that information.
Thank you.
Yep.
And just to, I have 5 minutes left here. Just to help contextualize, would you be okay if I could share my screen with these stewards of public good? Just to contextualize some numbers. Adam mentioned correctly, you're right, if Fallbrook and Rainbow leave, there's essentially a $12.5 million hit that in some way or fashion is going to need to be made up by the rest of the member agencies. So I'm going to show you a chart of the member agencies and how we calculate how that number would ultimately be passed on to the agencies and presumably have to be made up in your own rate adjustments. I'm not showing you what we think the rate impact per connection or equivalent unit is, because that's a bit of a controversial topic for us and the subject agencies. But everyone agrees to this, or at least for the most part, this macro look at the impact. Oop, hold on. After a year, you would think I would be better at this. Hold on. So is everyone seeing a box here that says redistribution of lost revenue? So just again, for the benefit of absorbing what these numbers are most likely going to mean to your agencies, just starting with Carlsbad, an annual hit of $454,000. Going down the line, obviously, the city of San Diego would have the biggest annual hit of about 5.4 million, and so on. So again, sharing this just to further contextualize what these numbers mean to all of you. One of the things that we are working on is drilling down using, as Adam said, city of San Diego and perhaps UEM or another small district, and getting a real specific number of what the average impact to a ratepayer will be, whether it's 60 cents a month or perhaps, you know, $2.60. That's what we're going to drill down on. So with that, not seeing any more hands, I think we can go ahead and do our final check-in with Erica. Erica, are there any people from the public who have sent you an email?
So far, no public comments received.
Well, the opportunity has come and gone for them. Any comments or announcements from any of our members here, City Advisory Committee members? You could use your hand raise feature. Seeing none. So again, the streak continues. We have never gone over our allocated amount of time with all of you. You're welcome. So with that, have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday. And for those, and I know Paz will follow up offline with you via Carol. And if any of you also have questions, especially on the budget or work plan, let staff know. But have a great rest of the week. Thank you all.
Thank you. Same to you.